Welcome, everyone, to our latest session at Local Gov Drupal Week 2024. Thanks very much for coming. This session is called How You Can Improve Access to Council Services by Improving Site Performance. And we've got the lovely James Hall from Agile Collective, a former friend and colleague. Well, still friends, but former colleagues. I hope we're still friends.
I'll show you to break the news.
Sorry. And thank you for running the session, James. I'm looking forward to it. So we'll let you, you've got a load of slides to go through and there'll be time for questions. James is happy to take questions as we go, as long as there's not too many. So feel free to just drop those in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and then I can politely interrupt James. It's quite nice to do it in context. But before that, I just want to say thank you to our event sponsor, Agile Collective, James. You are also sponsoring the event. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Agile Collective are a worker-owned agency that designs, builds, and supports websites for purpose-driven organizations, including councils. They've been the leading technical partner for Local Gov Drupal since 2020, and they currently hold the developer contract for the project and do a lot. So thank you. Thank you for your support. Thanks also to all of our council and supplier subscribers, including Agile Collective, and our supporting partners, including Netcall, who've contributed so much and enabled things like this event to happen. In terms of Zoom, if you need to change how you're viewing the meeting, then the view settings are usually at the top right. And that should be standard because it's mostly a screen share. I would imagine the default will probably work best for you, but you can change things if you want. As I said, yeah, please add questions in the chat as we go, and I'll be monitoring that and just ask James as we go. And I'm going to hand over to you, James.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Just check before I start. Sound is okay, Aaron?
You sound good to me.
Clearly, fantastic. Yes, welcome everyone to this session about web performance on local government websites. First, yes, start by saying how great it is to see so many people interested in this topic. So a little bit of housekeeping in addition to what Aaron has already covered. Probably going to make this about 30 minutes long, and please do ask questions. Like, I am very happy to be interrupted, and yeah, I think it's good to have the discussion in context, as Aaron has said. And I do plan on making the slides and all the data that I'll be presenting in this talk available after the session. So my hope for this session is that you are going to go away convinced about the importance of web performance, and also inspired to have a look into the state of the sites that you are responsible for. Before I begin, a little bit about me. So yeah, as mentioned, I am a worker, member, and developer at Agile Collective. This talk is pretty icon and stats heavy, so I thought I'd kick it off with a few about me. I've been working with Drupal for over 12 years now, and I am bossed around daily by two cats, and I am halfway to my goal of having a bike for every day of the week. So web performance, or web perf as cool people call it. So yeah, what is it, and why does it matter? So the first one, the obvious one, is speed. Nobody likes a slow website. I think that is fair to say. And so yeah, you know, broadly, web performance is all about making experiences using websites faster. The BBC and others have conducted research that has proven that poor web performance has an impact on engagement and conversions, and yeah, so that is well documented, and why lots of people take it seriously. The problem about speed is that it's not so easy to define. or at least it wasn't up until we had the Google's Core Web Vitals. So you may be familiar with these, but yeah, they are ways to measure web performance in ways that are perceivable to users. So we're not just measuring, oh, when did the website load. It's more, when did things happen that is important to the user. So the three present core web vitals are the largest contentful paint, which is how quickly did the most important piece of content on the page load. IMP, interaction to next paint, is how quickly does the browser respond to an interaction, to somebody clicking a button or trying to focus a text box. And finally, cumulative layout shift, which is about how much the page moves around as it's loading. And so these are pretty much de facto standards now for measuring web performance. So yeah, so speed. That's the first reason why web performance is important. The next one is usability. So yeah, of course, if a website is slow to load, or referring back to the core web vitals, if it moves around or the content's not visible very quickly, or yeah, it doesn't react quickly to you trying to use the page, then yeah, obviously usability is impacted. And yes, there has been studies to provide evidence on the impact of usability. I mean, this one, okay, it's not. Yeah, so this one is saying that yeah, basically a slow loading website causes a lot of stress for users, basically. And yeah, I guess it's worth considering that yeah, the UK, like, we're not all using broadband all the time, and actually so a lot of us are using mobile networks, and the UK doesn't actually do particularly well on the global rankings of the median download speed. So yeah, 49th is, it's quite far down the list, and of course web performance issues are just exacerbated by slow networks, basically. So as an example of that, this is a timeline, visual timeline of the same page loading on two different network connections. So the one at the bottom is a broadband connection. By the way, this is like a simulated test, so it's just illustrative. But and then the one above would be a slowish 3G connection, and you can see that there is quite a difference. This might be exaggerated a little bit by the simulation, but yeah, the difference can be that marked, is that we've got people on a broadband connection seeing the same thing at 4 seconds that people on a slow mobile connection don't see until 18. So so that's usability. I mean, obviously poorly performing sites that are poorly performed for web performance just do not have, it does impact on usability. So the next thing is about the crossover between web performance and sustainability. So yeah, web performance is in many cases about trying to make things, make the data that you're sending over the wire, over the network, as small as possible, as small as it can be, while still trying to maintain the level of the experience that you're hoping for, as well as reducing sort of processing that happens on the user's device. Of course, both of those things involve energy, and yeah, there are many estimations kicking about how much a particular one page view or 1 megabyte over the wire costs in CO2. yeah, the truth is that it's a very hard thing to calculate, but it is undeniable that there is a cost. And here is one quote that I got that estimates that yeah, a year on the internet for an average user is the equivalent to 1,400 kilometers in a car. So yeah, you can find many different estimations out there, but I think most important thing is, there is a cost. And so if you are sending more data than you need, or doing more processing than you need, then you're incurring unnecessary costs on CO2. So on to the next. So my final point about why web performance is important is about equity, and I'm sure many of you working in local government understand that access to information, access to services should be equitable. Should be everyone should have this has the right to have the same be able to access services and information in the same way. And yeah, web performance does most certainly have an impact here. So one thing to consider, I mean, we've obviously already spoken about this, is that not everybody has access to a really good network connection. One thing we see, mobile networks particularly vary from cities to rural areas and even to different regions of the UK. There's also an estimated 7% of households in the UK that are without a broadband connection. They may just be relying on using their mobile phone to access the internet, and many of those people may be on a prepaid tariff where they have a limited amount of data to use, and they may not be able to afford any more. And yeah, there is of course a correlation between the amount of data that one particular page view needs and how much that's costing people who are on those tariffs. So so that's some information, or it's me making my case for why web performance needs to be taken seriously and why it's important. The next part of this talk is going to be looking at what the current state of web performance based on my data, I'm going to make that caveat now, is on local government sites in the UK. So a couple of things worth saying about this. So I obtained a list of websites, which actually wasn't particularly easy to do, but yeah, so my source data was 400 local government websites. That may be incomplete, it may be too many, it may be too few. But certainly a lot of them are correct. And yeah, so I used those sites and conducted some research. The first thing I did was have a look at how those sites were scoring on the whole against Google's core web vitals. Now, actually, there's only 315 of those sites that had that data, and I'll come on to talk a bit more about why that might be on the next slide. The other tool that I used was Lighthouse, which is a auditing tool that's provided by Google as well. And actually that was only on 392 of the sites, and I can't tell you exactly why those last 8 were not audited. It was, it may be something technical. I haven't had the time to actually look into that. Hopefully that's something I can look into and provide information on after the talk. The other thing is that I was purely looking at experiences using the sites on mobile devices, and then and for the audits, which I'll talk about in a minute, we were only looking at the homepage because you can only audit a single page. So yes, core web vitals. So this is the report that I generated that was for the 392. So most of the sites that I was looking at. If you're not familiar with Crux, it is the Chrome User Experience Report, and it is a public database. And the data in that is from real users of Chrome devices who haven't opted out of having that telemetry, having that data sent to the being included in the data set. So I guess the caveats are obviously that this is only Chrome users. But a lot of people use Chrome, so I think it's not to be dismissed. And also, so the 392s only includes the 392 of the sites that I looked at, and that is because Crux has a threshold of page views. So actually, possible that those 8 were just do not receive enough traffic to be included in the data set. So anyway, on with the good news, which is that overall, so what are we looking at here? So yeah, the 0 to 100%, so that 100%, so that would be the 392 sites. And yeah, overall, it is a very positive picture for web performance, across all of those sites. So what we're seeing here is that maybe in excess of 90% of the sites have a very good LCP score, and a same for sort of a few less for CLS, and IMP is also very good. And yeah, it's worth saying that this is origin level data, so that means that it's an aggregation of all of the scores collected across all of the pages on that domain. So yeah, this is very positive. And we could just end the talk there, and you could all just go away and give yourselves a pat on the back, perhaps. But yeah, this is very good. I mean, I guess it wasn't a massive surprise to me, given the nature of local government sites. There shouldn't be lots and lots of imagery, lots and lots of videos. Well, I wouldn't expect there to be. So yeah, and also of course using sort of tried and tested patterns. However, yeah, so I continued with my investigation to see if there were other things, issues to discuss, to look into, and that brings me to my lighthouse audit. So just to remind you, this was only 315 of the sites. Hold on, let me just, is that true? Anyway, some of the sites, and this is a simulated test. So in contrast to the Chrome User Experience Report, which is data from real users coming from their devices, this is data that is generated from a simulation. However, the things that I've been looking at would be the same for real users. So the first thing that sort of looking at here that sort of stood out to me was so this is the total page weight of all of the homepage, and so what this pie chart is showing is that over 50% of the home pages that we looked at has a total page weight. So that's everything that's needed to display that particular page: images, fonts, HTML, scripts, and styles, etc. Was over 1.6 megabytes. And 40% of those sites was in excess of 2 megabytes, which is definitely on the heavy side. Of course, there's some that were completely on the other end of the spectrum, less than half a megabyte. So yeah, that was a bit of a surprise and a concern, I think. So that said, these numbers on the right here, they are the sort of median. So 1.6 megabytes is the median total page weight across all of the top sites on the internet as recorded by the HTTP archive. I can provide links to all of my sources at the end of this, but yeah, so 1.6 megabytes, and that was over the period October 2018 to October of this year. So yeah, so on local sites are not unlike the rest of the sites on the internet, but it is worth noting that sorry, I just miss. Oh, no. 1.6 megabytes is the median across all the local government websites. Sorry. 2.3 megabytes is the HTTP archives median uh, yeah, value across all of the top sites. But it's worth noting that that is up 82% in that period of the last 6 years, basically. So yeah, it's a trajectory that we've been on. The total bytes for web pages just keeps getting bigger, despite the fact that we there are many reasons why it should be going the other way.
What does
So
good, what does
yeah,
good,
cool.
maybe you're covering this, but what does good look like?
Yes, so good looks like Chrome, the Chrome team who write a lot and advise a lot on web performance say that you should be aiming to keep your total byte size below 1.6 megabytes. And yeah, this is the target is based on the amount of data that theoretically be downloaded on a free cheat connection. So that is one performance budget that you may want to use. Of course, you may want to determine your own based on your users and what you know about them. But yeah, 1.6 bytes. So there are a lot, like as I'd said on the previous slide, there's over 50% of sites I looked at on the homepage are going in excess of this. So just sort of trying to break that down into what the contributors of that. These are the median megabytes for each of these things. Sorry. For scripts, images, fonts, and style sheets on those home pages. So yeah, as you can see, fonts and style sheets are not, relatively not the big contributors to the page weight, whereas yeah, scripts and images are more of an issue, and yeah, not surprising. I mean, images, yeah, obviously images, and if you look on the HTTP archive, it's most sites on the internet are majority images in terms of data. But yeah, this is a lot of scripts, and the sort of the pinky, nearly 25% is third-party scripts. So these are scripts that are not coming from your domain; they're coming from another domain. And actually, so it could actually this 23.5% could actually be scripts, images, or anything else, but it has been loaded by your web page because you have included their script on your site. And yeah, third parties are, this is not an uncommon scenario. So yeah, and so so I decided to sort of focus in on these two things really, on third parties and on images, and see what we can do about it. I've got another representation of the previous data set, which is showing across all of those home pages for each of the types of resource, scripts, images, fonts, style sheets, etc. What proportion of the 400 sites are are loading more than 1.6 megabytes, 1 to 1.6 megabytes, 0.5 to 1 megabyte to 0.5 to 1 megabytes, and less than. So you can see that scripts and images really are a problem. On quite a few home pages, there's more than 1.6 megabytes of images being loaded, and yeah, and same with scripts. So yeah, moving on. I have had a quick look at all of the third parties that are being loaded across by all of those homepages, and yeah, it's kind of interesting, really. I mean, there's quite a few there. There's quite a few that don't feature on this pie chart because the proportion of the total was too small. I mean, Google Tag Manager, not a big surprise, I guess. I mean, this is probably the story on many sites, is that Tag Manager gives lots of flexibility for non-technical teams to add stuff to your site, analytics and the like, but also perhaps too much flexibility, because look, I mean, it's a huge proportion of the third part of the data, total map, the third-party data that's being used across those sites. But some of the things that were a bit more shocking, or a bit more surprising. Font Awesome at 7.6%. I mean, that is a huge proportion of the data for icons. So yeah, something to consider. And browse aloud. So that would be an accessibility overlay, and yeah, and Google Fonts, I guess, are the more notable ones. Some recommendations to bring the sort of data down here is to Google Tag Manager. Have a good look, review what's going on in Tag Manager. Is it all necessary? Is it all being used? Can you purge some of it? That should be fairly easy to do. Font Awesome, there are many ways of integrating Font Awesome onto your site. The easiest is the CDN way, which is where you just drop in a link to their CDN and it loads all of the fonts, regardless of whether or not you're using them or not. And that probably accounts for why we're seeing such, Font Awesome being such a large proportion of all that data. So what can you do differently? Host it yourself. They also allow you to go and grab all of the icons that, only the icons that you need as SVGs, and then you to host them on your website and to just use the ones that you need without additional network requests to Font Awesome. The look of Drupal base theme already provides good tooling to sort of work with SVGs and use them as icons in your themes. Browse aloud. Well, don't use it. Make your site accessible. Make your site accessible so it's not required. YouTube, it's not one that we looked at there. It wasn't actually a huge proportion, but user facade. So it's instead of loading the YouTube player and all of the data that's needed by default, first just show an image and then only load the YouTube player when people actually, when your users indicate that they are interested in watching it. There is pretty good support in Drupal for this. There is, so you can do it through Media and OEmbed, or you could also, there's some contrib modules out there that was one in particular that uses like YouTube Embed, which is like something that's produced by one of the members of the Chrome team, to automatically just go and fetch the thumbnail for you and display that with a play button. And Google Fonts, the obvious solution to this one is just to use less. It's like, do you need all of these variations of the font that you're loading? Do you need a custom font for your body text? Does it make any difference? Can you use just a system font? And I realised I am probably, how are we doing for timing, Aaron? I guess we're sort of running out a little bit, but
just after 1:30.
Okay.
So I'd say maybe another 5 minutes.
Okay.
5, 10.
Five,
6 minutes.
Okay, yeah, that should be fine. So
depends on questions.
So that was third parties. Then I had a little look into images, the data that I collected through my audits on images. So 89% of sites using images that are not modern. So that means probably using JPEGs instead of using WebP. and yeah, potentially 318 megabytes across all of the sites that did not need to be transferred if you were using a modern image format. And 60% of sites had images of, well, so I say sites, homepages had images that were oversized for a mobile device, bigger than they needed to be, and yeah, so transferring unnecessary amounts of data, perhaps 173 bytes. So yeah, some potentially big savings there. Image formats optimized. Drupal has wonderful support for automatically converting images between formats, and yeah, so easily you can take your source JPEG and transform it on the fly to WebP to get those savings, and responsive images. So yeah, there's broadly two ways of dealing with responsive images. One is about providing art direction, another is just maintaining the same aspect ratio at different sizes, and Drupal has really good support for both of these. The first thing to do is to go and maybe get some screen sizes based on analytics, and look into whether the images being loaded for those screen sizes are appropriate. Too big? Can they be made smaller? And if so, then you will have to revisit the way your responsive images have been configured. So yeah, and just a quick note on WebP, it has been broadly supported for a long time. There is just no good reason not to be using it, and in fact, it was soon to be superseded by formats that are even more, offer even better compression and smaller file sizes. So that brings me to the end of this talk. In terms of what you could be doing next, think about a performance budget. So I mentioned the 1.6 megabytes that Google recommends, but you might decide that you want to strive for something even better. There is a series of articles by one of the developers on the Microsoft Edge team, called Alex Russell, who writes about the performance inequality gap. I can refer people to that after, but he talks a lot about performance budgets and what might be a good performance budget. The Chrome user experience report. So the database that I talked about previously, that's a public data set. You can go and look at, go and find data for your specific site, and see how it's doing, see if there's areas for improvement. Real user monitoring. So if you're not in the position to use a Chrome user explorer because you don't have enough traffic, then or you just want to be capturing real data, real web performance data from a wider users aren't on Chrome, then you might want to think about real user monitoring. There are a number of services that offer this. Of course, it involves the inclusion of a third-party script on your page, but yeah, real user monitoring is just a way of capturing issues from real users and then acting on them. Web page test is one of the industry standards, freely available tools for generating a lot of information about a particular page on your website, and identifying potential opportunities for improvement. Page speed insights is another web-based tool, and actually uses Lighthouse, which is the tool that I've been using for the audits, and then finally, audit. So the process that we Agile Collective offers web performance audits, and it's about identifying common templates in your site, the ones perhaps that get the most traffic, auditing each one. So using the tools above to basically sort of look into any issues and potential improvements that you could make to those templates. And that is it, I think. I hope people have found that interesting and maybe useful.
Thanks, James. I definitely found it interesting, and it was really nice to build off a talk that we had at the beginning of the year from a couple of people about web sustainability. And your like the approach you took in looking at the data was quite different, so it was really nice. It was really interesting seeing that. Um, we've got some questions. I don't know how many of these you can answer, James. We'll see.
Yeah, I
Just because
will,
they're kind of
I will
LGD.
try.
Some of them are about like what how much of what you're talking about is in LGD already, etc. Um, so Ryan, for example, is asking, will LGD be updated to support WebP and these newer image formats? Now, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if you do, James.
I don't think I do know the answer to that. No, I'm afraid. But if it sounds like a great initiative. If not already the case, and of course, yeah, if you are, yeah, so yeah,
Is
and if
that
you want to
is
get
that
ahead of that, and then obviously, yeah, if you maintain a Drupal site, then it is, you can obviously go ahead and do that yourselves.
and I guess maybe the question then would be like, how straightforward is it to tell these formats to be supported? Like,
Yeah,
is
no,
it
it's
much
it's
work to do?
actually
Straightforward.
remarkably straightforward. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you're using existing image styles in Drupal, you can, yeah, install and configure a module which will basically add a I forgot what the terminology is now, but also, it would include, when you're generating image styles, it will also generate a WebP derivative of that. So, um, yeah, easily attainable. Um,
So So the practical question is like the existing. If you've got a load of existing images and you're enabling a
mhm.
newer format, how is it a manual process to
No, there's no manual process. Yeah,
no
so
no
it will
manual
take your
process?
source, your
Right,
source
so that's what
image.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Um, Another question from Ryan, similar again. So maybe if there's someone else on the call who might know this answer, like feel free to jump in. James, there's a question about like, is there a way to see this sort of performance data within LGD, but maybe we could see that as like within a Drupal site. Like, how would you go about doing that? Is that easy to do?
Not so much within a Drupal site. I mean, maybe there's opportunities there. So yeah, the gold standard of data when it comes to web performance is real user data. So I can obviously audit a website on my computer, very fast laptop on a broadband connection, and get wonderful results. And but yeah, the reality is that people are out there using websites on a variety of devices with variable network conditions, and so yeah, and so that's the data you care about, because that's the data, that's what's impacting your users. So, and yeah, so the web Chrome user experience report is a very useful resource there. But if you really want to take it seriously, then yeah, monitoring, starting to implement your own real user monitoring is the way to go.
So I
Um,
guess with other things like there are accessibility checkers on a page by page basis. Is there a way of having a sort of performance report on a page by page basis or across the site or something?
yeah, I mean, again, it depends what your report is going to be based on, but there's
Yeah.
certainly opportunities there. So the Chrome user experience will also provide an API. So there's a potential feature there where yeah, you could have a view of scores in Drupal on a page level. Um, but yeah, obviously, there's things you can install in your browser. So you can get a Core Web Vitals browser extension. Every time you load a page, it will just pop up and just tell you what your scores are. But again, that's your computer, so in a way, it's I guess it's interesting. If they were really bad, you might want to look into it, but also it's yeah, you're probably going to be on a fast laptop, so it's not the data that really matters.
Yeah. Um, Simon Simon Williams has asked, how well is local Drupal optimized for performance already? But then, and another question related is how much of this is like, can a council influence with content?
Yeah, so Drupal and local Drupal are well optimized performance because they send HTML from the server, which is very, very good performance. In contrast to things like, maybe single page applications or stuff like that require the browser to first receive a load of scripts and then start to construct what the web page looks like. We're sending the web page. So that's, off the bat, the fact that you're based on Drupal is a positive thing for sure. Of course, them going into the details of sort of smaller optimizations. I don't know actually how well local Drupal is, but certainly the foundations are there to optimize all of the things that I've just talked about. So there's great support for serving responsive images, for optimizing images. And then to talk about content, yes, it can be massively influenced. What's going on the page? Are you embedding iframes that are automatically loading, there numerous things from another domain? And like I said, the way that you embed videos and whether or not you're sort of forcing all of that data on users, regardless of whether or not they actually want to watch it. And you might want to think about, Tag Manager and the rest of it as content. It's certainly managed like content by a lot of teams, and just wanting to be careful about how you use those things and understand there is a cost.
The video one that you mentioned is interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
I mean, that's certainly a very
a,
obvious candidate for for the distribution, I would say.
Mark Conway was just saying, just for clarity, when using microsites and choosing any of the fonts we provide, they do not connect to Google and slow down your site or pass data to Google, breaking GDPR. So all microsite fonts are hosted locally on the microsite platform, which is good for various reasons. And Simon is also saying like they've got like one typical use case is advertising scripts, which often and in their case are outside of their control, which is one of those things that's tricky.
I mean, just to say, people aren't aware, the risk of third parties that when we say third parties, what we mean is you're putting a link up from your website to a script that someone else is in control of, and you are just opening the door to them to just force your users to download whatever they like. So you do need to use these services with a lot of care.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we're just at time now. So I just want to say thank you very much, James. That was great. Really great session. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for coming. I hope you found it useful and interesting, engaging. If there are other follow-up questions, James is on Slack and others, so do at him there if you've got particular questions you want to ask and follow up on.